A little girl opened her barn doors and froze. 4 German shepherds sat silently in the barn, staring at her. She thought they were just lost dogs. But what this little girl didn't know was that they weren't strays at all. They had a secret, a purpose. And when the truth came out, her entire town was shocked. The sun always rose gently over the Thompson family farm. For 8-year-old Emma, this life was all she knew, peaceful, predictable, and full of simple joy. Every morning, Emma slipped on her muddy boots and skipped down the porch steps with a bucket of feed in hand. Her chores included feeding the chickens, brushing the family's old horse, and occasionally chasing a stubborn goat back into its pen. Her laughter echoed across the fields like music. She loved animals deeply, speaking to them like old friends. Her parents often said she had a special gift. Animals trusted her, even the wild ones. Until one strange morning, Emma awoke to a sound she couldn't place, faint barking in the distance. It wasn't their dog, Rusty. This bark was deeper, sharper. She opened her window and listened. Silence. Maybe she'd imagined it, but something told her tomorrow would not be the same. And it wasn't. The next morning, Emma heard it again. This time, it was closer. Clear, distinct barking coming from somewhere behind the barn. She slipped out of bed and padded to the window, but the yard looked empty. Not even Rusty stirred from his usual spot by the coop. "Rusty?" she called softly. No response. At breakfast, she mentioned it to her parents. Her mom chuckled. "Maybe you were dreaming, sweetie." Her dad shrugged. "Could be coyotes passing through." But Emma knew the sound wasn't wild. It was sharp and controlled, not panicked, not random. That night, the barking returned, low, rhythmic, almost like it was signaling something. Emma crept out to the porch in her pajamas and listened, heart thudding in her chest. Again, it stopped as soon as she stepped outside. The night air was still, too still. She didn't know it yet, but something had already arrived on their farm, something that didn't want to be seen. Not yet. The following morning, Emma woke before sunrise. A strange feeling tugged at her chest, part fear, part curiosity. She dressed quickly, grabbed a flashlight, and tiptoed past her still sleeping parents. The barn door creaked as she pushed it open. That's when she froze. Lined up inside, sitting side by side on the straw-covered floor, were 4 German shepherds, large, muscular, alert. They didn't bark, they didn't move. They just stared at her, as if they had been waiting for this moment. Emma's breath caught. Her first instinct was to back away, but something about their eyes made her pause. They weren't wild, they weren't angry, they were calm, focused, watching her like she was important. She whispered, "Hi," and to her shock, one of the dogs tilted its head gently, as if acknowledging her. There were no leashes, no crates, no collars. Just 4 highly trained dogs sitting in complete silence, in a barn that had been locked from the outside the night before. Emma backed away slowly, her pulse racing. She turned and bolted toward the house, her voice cracking in the morning air. "Mom, Dad, come quick, you have to see this." She didn't know it yet, but nothing would ever be the same again. Emma's parents rushed outside, half-dressed and groggy. "What is it?" her father asked, grabbing a shovel on instinct. Emma pointed toward the barn, her eyes wide with urgency. "They're in there. Just come look." When they opened the barn doors, both parents froze. The 4 German shepherds were still sitting in perfect formation, their gazes fixed on the entrance. Her mother gasped. "Where did they come from?" Her father stepped forward cautiously, scanning the room. No chains, no food bowls, and the doors were locked last night. How did they get in? He clapped his hands loudly. The dogs didn't flinch. One of them, the biggest, stood up and took a few slow steps forward, calm, confident, but not threatening. "They don't look like strays," he murmured. "These dogs were trained." Emma looked up at her parents, a chill creeping down her spine. Then why were they left here? And why us? Over the next few days, the dogs stayed on the farm. They didn't try to run or roam. They followed Emma wherever she went, silently, like shadows. It was as if she had unknowingly become their new handler. What unsettled her parents most wasn't their presence. It was their behavior. These weren't lost pets. They responded to unspoken cues. When Emma raised her hand without thinking, two of them sat instantly. When she called out "stop" during a game, the largest one, who she had started calling Chief, blocked her from nearing the wood's edge. One night, Emma dropped a bucket of feed and gasped. Before her dad could react, one of the dogs lunged forward and stood guard between her and a nearby rattlesnake. It didn't bark, it didn't growl, it simply waited until the danger slithered away, then returned to Emma's side. Her mother finally said what they were all thinking. These dogs were trained to protect someone. They're not acting like they were lost. They're acting like they were assigned. Emma couldn't sleep that night. She stared out her window at the barn, four silhouettes barely visible in the moonlight. Why were they sent here? And who or what were they guarding her from? Emma couldn't shake the feeling that someone had brought the dogs to her on purpose. But who? And why? That weekend, she and her father visited nearby neighbors, hoping someone might have seen something. Most hadn't. No one reported missing dogs. No one had even heard unusual barking. Only one old man, Mr. Doyle, had a story worth hearing. He leaned on his cane, squinting toward their farm in the distance. "A few days back," he said slowly, "I saw a black van parked by your property late at night. Thought it was a delivery or something. But now," he shook his head. "Didn't seem right." That detail stuck with Emma. A black van. Why so secretive? She convinced her father to check the barn for signs. Tire tracks, footprints, anything. Behind a row of hay bales, they found it. A muddy boot print. Fresh, not theirs. Someone had been there. Someone had left the dogs. Emma stared at the print, heart pounding. What if they weren't abandoned? Her father glanced at her, brow furrowed. What if they were planted? The questions were multiplying, and the truth, whatever it was, seemed to be getting closer and more dangerous. Concerned by the dog's mysterious origin, Emma's parents took them to the nearest veterinary clinic. The vet, Dr. Hall, was experienced, but even he looked surprised when he scanned the first dog. "There's a chip," he said, adjusting his glasses. "But this isn't a standard pet registry." He moved to the next, and the next. All four dogs had microchips, each with encrypted IDs. After several minutes of silent typing, Dr. Hall looked up, face pale. "These aren't from any public database. They're tagged under a private military-grade tracking system. This is serious." Emma's father leaned forward. "What kind of system?" Dr. Hall hesitated. "One used by government contractors, covert security units, maybe even private military firms." The room went silent. Emma clutched Chief's thick fur. The dogs weren't just trained, they were part of something much bigger. Her mother whispered the thought that none of them wanted to say out loud. "We're not supposed to have them, are we?" That night, Emma's father couldn't sleep. He stayed up researching the microchip codes Dr. Hall had written down, digging into forums and news archives. Just past midnight, he found something. A defunct private security firm, Grey Ridge Tactical Solutions, had recently come under federal investigation. Allegations included illegal training programs, unauthorized testing on animals, and abandoning assets after operations were shut down. The firm specialized in high-risk surveillance and canine-assisted field work. Emma's father stared at the screen, heart pounding. The four dogs on their farm matched the breed and training level described in the case files. The next morning, he contacted a journalist friend in the city. She confirmed the rumors. The company had gone underground. Some animals were unaccounted for, presumed euthanized or lost. But they weren't lost. They were here. Emma sat beside Chief, stroking his fur slowly. "They didn't choose us by accident," she said quietly. Her father nodded. "Number. Someone knew, someone brought them here because they knew we wouldn't turn them away." The realization settled like a shadow across the room. The dogs weren't just survivors, they were evidence. 2 nights later, it happened. A soft clatter came from the barn, too deliberate to be an animal. Then a faint metallic click, like a latch being tampered with. Emma's father grabbed his flashlight and rushed outside, but the dogs were faster. Before he reached the barn, furious barking erupted, the kind that rattled your bones. By the time he flung open the doors, the 4 German shepherds had surrounded a man dressed in black, face masked. He stood frozen, arms raised, cornered. Chief bared his teeth but didn't strike, just waited, perfectly trained. Police arrived within minutes. The intruder was arrested. His fingerprints matched a former Grey Ridge contractor wanted for questioning. He had tools in his bag: wire cutters, rope, and a syringe. The sheriff looked at the dogs and shook his head. They didn't just protect your barn, they saved your lives. Emma hugged Chief tightly. He didn't bark. He didn't move. He had simply done his job perfectly. News of the attempted break-in and the dog's heroic defense spread fast. By morning, the small town buzzed with reporters, neighbors, and curious strangers wanting to see the farm with the guardian dogs. The mayor visited personally, presenting Emma with a certificate of bravery. The sheriff's department offered to help the family officially adopt the dogs. A local news station aired their story under the headline, "The Barn Guardians."